And I've got the recording of where this retired detective calls in and says, hey, I need a couple of DCI investigators down here and bring some shovels.
This is not an infomercial for the police. This is not a puff piece. This is going to be a real whole and just a complete telling of the story.
Nearly 8 years after the Netflix docuseries Making a Murderer told the story of a wrongfully convicted man, later found guilty of murder, a rebuttal series debuts.
Well, they had to have gained entrance to his property. They had to leave the remains there on his property. Where did it start to fall apart for you that you said, hey, I don't know if this guy did anything?
I mean, the documentary itself, yeah, it's biased. However, even in its bias, there are a lot of truth in it. There are news reports and stuff in the courtroom.
There are human bones that we found?
I heard about some of them, yes.
Yep, okay. We got another file that we found.
So where are these bones?
No idea.
All right, I am joined today by John Jackson to talk about a case the case is older than 10 years old, but I'd say the public knowledge of the case is coming on 10 years old. It's a very famous Netflix special that helped put Netflix true crime on the map, and that was Making a Murderer, about the case of Steven Avery. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on and for the interview.
It's good to have you, and I wanted to talk to you about this, and I may talk to others too. I feel like I may be the one person in this country that has not actually watched Making a Murderer. And before people attack me, I realized that so much has been covered on it. I'm not trying to be an expert on the story. I'm trying to learn the story, and I want to represent those people who have never heard anything about it and not suffer the quote unquote curse of knowledge. Are you familiar with that, John?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I absolutely don't have much knowledge. I mean, I see little tidbits here and there and headlines that go by or videos that talk about this and that. But from what I understand, the documentary Making a Murderer came on the scene in 2015 and turned the true crime world upside down. Now, one immediate concern out the gate is, as Scott Adams once said, the least reliable piece of information is a documentary. And the reason a documentary quite often is so unreliable is the documentary is telling a story or sending a message. It is quite literally propaganda for a viewpoint. Would you agree with that, John?
Yes.
Okay. And in this case, it's very, very, very pro Steven Avery, that initial documentary Making a Murderer. As such, some people have come out and made, I guess you'd say, a counter documentary. One of them, I believe, was Candace Owens on the Daily Wire.
Netflix made millions of dollars from Making a Murderer, but the filmmakers left out very important details, mountains of evidence that you have not yet seen.
And that, I believe, got some traction or whatever it is. And it's stating the case that no, Steven Avery did it. And they got the right guy. This is all BS. I'm bringing you on because I believe you stand with Steven Avery versus against him. Is that correct?
We talked just briefly before we came on. I should probably restate my position.
Okay.
I believe that neither he nor Brendan had anything to do with it. But I continued to search for the truth because, and I'll stop when I say this, there's still a lot of information we can't get. They won't let us have. Thousands of photos, thousands of documents they refuse to give us. Recordings. 20-year-old case, can't get it.
Okay, interesting. Now, to help us all out, can you tell me what the actual crime is? What happened?
Yes. the Making a Murderer covers a lot of ground, and it really starts mainly in 85. Steven Avery was convicted of sexually assaulting Penny Bernstein, and she was her and her husband, they were in their 30s, were on the beach on Lake Michigan in Wisconsin, and she was attacked and brutally assaulted. He got convicted for that in 1985.
Okay.
Moving forward through the years, he said he didn't do it, and he had receipts to back it up. But that's a whole other arena to. Anyway, moving forward through the years, he appealed, of course, and then of course DNA became a thing in the early 90s, and then was really kind of really going pretty good there by the late 90s. Anyway, there were some pubic hairs combings from Penny that had never been tested, and they got tested in 2002, and then they retested again. Anyway, September of 2003, come to find out this other guy named Gregory Allen, which we'll talk more about, is the one that actually did it. There was no physical evidence on Avery. This guy's pubic hair was in her pubic hair combings. So Avery gets his conviction gets overturned. Now, he was convicted of two things in 85. He had a cousin named Sandra Morris that she was a barfly. She was going around town there, and I guess Manitowoc, wherever the area, and she was talking pretty rough about Steven. I don't know what all was said. It's never really been revealed, but apparently she was putting him down pretty hard. Now, like I told you, Steven can be a real jerk, a real ass. I'll say it. I'll continue to say it.
Do you know him personally?
I do not know him. I've never spoken to him. I've never written to him. I've never received anything from him. So anyway.
So how do you come to the conclusion that he can be an ass then? I just want to make sure that.
Oh, I've got thousands and thousands. We've got thousands of phone calls and all kinds of correspondence. So, and there's other things too that he doesn't think. Steven's not a rocket scientist either. He's not a real dummy, but he's not that smart either, because he's let his anger take hold and gets him in trouble. Anyway, after all this talking that she did about him, he got mad. He finally got real mad, and he ran her off the road with a shotgun. So he got 6 years out of that. And this also happened in 85. So he ended up serving.
And that one he did do. There's no question.
He did do it. And he should have went to prison for what he did. He did do it. So anyway, he ended up getting 6 years for that. And he served 12 years of the 32, I think he was sentenced for, in the Penny Bernstein attack. Of course, that got cut short. He got released from prison in 2003. So he gets released, and of course, his lawyers are raising all kinds of hell. Anyway, the AG for Wisconsin, Peg Leitenschlager, ordered an investigation as to because Avery's screaming that Manitowoc County set him up. That's where he lived at. That's where he's from. That they set him up. And just railroaded him.
Set him up for what now? For the original attack in 85 or what?
Yes, for this attack in 85. Yeah, we're not to the Teresa time frame yet. Okay.
So how did they set him up?
Yeah, well, and Tom Cus Road was the sheriff, and he'd been sheriff for many, many years. So, and he didn't like Steven. He didn't like him at all. There's no doubt about that. So anyway, this investigation is done by the DOJ, and we have a lot of those reports. And she comes back and she clears Manitowoc County of any wrongdoing. So he files a lawsuit in October of 2004. A little over a year later, he files a $36 million federal lawsuit, and So from that point on, let's start going through all the civil stuff. The depositions began in May of 2005. A few months later, several months later, I guess you'd say. And they run through almost the end of October 2005. Teresa disappears on October 31st, 2005.
Okay. Now, who is Teresa?
Teresa Halbach is a young woman. She was 25. She's from that Manitowoc, Two Rivers area. Grew up there. Her family, her mom and dad and family, well, it's actually her stepdad. Her real dad died, but her mom married the dad's brother. They have a farm and raised cows or had dairy cows. So they're they've been well established in that area for a long time. Anyway, Teresa had she's a good young lady and graduated high school, went to college, graduated. She studied photography in that, and in the meantime, when she was going to school, she started working for this guy named Tom Pierce in Green Bay, helping him as an intern. And then when she graduated, she wanted to open her own shop. He was helping her do that. He'd been in the business for many years. In the meantime, she also took a job with Auto Trader. Are you familiar with Auto Trader or no?
Yeah, it's like a used car magazine.
That's right. People, they call them and they want to advertise their car. They pay,
catalog, I should say, I guess.
Yeah, and a photographer would come out, take a photo of your car.
Oh, fine.
You pay them, and then it would appear on the next issue of Auto Trader. And so this particular day, October 31st, 2005, Teresa had, she had 2 appointments, but Avery called that morning. And now this van that he wanted to sell actually belonged to his sister, Barb. I don't know if you've heard of Barb. There's 4 siblings. There's 4 siblings. Barb is the sister. She's not the youngest, but anyway, she's the one that was the van belonged to her, but she had to work, and they wanted to sell that van because they were trying to sell it and get money to fix up a little Suzuki 4x4 or some other little small SUV. And so he called Auto Trader that morning, and not knowing, because normally you don't just call and be able to get an appointment. You have to wait. But it turned out that Teresa was able to go. So she had 3 appointments. And she disappeared that day.
Okay, so now which appointment was his? I'm curious, first, second, or third?
That's second or third, and this is where the quandary comes in. The state says that she was the last appointment. He says he saw her drive out and leave.
Well, if there was another appointment, did that person say yes, she showed up for the appointment, or no?
Well, they did. They did say that. However,
okay, so I just want to clarify, because we get so there were up to 3 appointments that day.
Yes, there were 3 appointments.
She saw Steven Avery, he claims, and she left, he also claims. And the appointment after his, they claim that she did make that appointment.
Here's the quandary. The state says they've originally said that yes, that Avery was second and these other people were last. But then when they found getting a little bit more into detail, when they found the RAV4 5 days later on the Avery property. Now they live on a huge junkyard.
Hold on. The RAV4 is her vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. So they found her vehicle, a RAV4, on the Steven Avery's property?
Well, it's the Avery salvage yard. He didn't really own anything there.
Okay.
His mother, she's dead now, but she's the one that actually owned the property. But the Avery salvage yard encompassed roughly 40 yards, and there were roughly 4,000 junk cars on it. So
Okay, so if he didn't directly own it, though, he had full access to the property and was a
absolutely,
regular
absolutely,
person on it, right? Okay.
and he actually worked in the shop along with his two brothers.
Okay. So he definitely was associated to that property.
Absolutely. There's a little piece of property where that trailer that he lived in was located that was owned by another fella. But this guy that lived there, he was retired. He moved somewhere else, and Avery, Steven was renting that place. So, and he lived there and worked in the shop on the yard doing, whatever needed to be done.
Well, we've got a little time here because we've kind of skipped 5 days. So I'm going to guess that something happened that day and she was reported missing, I guess.
Not that day. No, she wasn't
Not that
reported.
day.
Actually, she was not actually reported missing. She didn't live with her mom and dad. Her
Okay.
mom and dad, I think it was her mother's parents owned a house just like a
Mhm.
quarter mile. It was right down the road from the farm and where they lived. Teresa had moved from Green Bay to that house where her grandparents owned. Now there was a guy already living there renting. She knew him. I mean, it wasn't like they were strangers.
A roommate or is this a multi-user?
Well, it was
Okay.
a roommate, but they,
Okay.
Anyway, she had moved back to that house had lived there about 8 months.
Okay.
So, for Teresa, doing this auto trader business, I guess you'd say this, going around taking photos. I mean, there's,
Mhm.
I don't want to get out of that. I'm
Right. So, okay. She was reported missing at what point? I mean, who noticed she was gone? We need to get
well,
that part.
that's another question. We're not entirely sure, but we do know that missing person posters were printed on the 2nd, November
Second
2nd.
day.
The
Okay.
November
So,
2nd, 2 days later.
okay. So 2 days later. Thank you.
Yeah,
And nobody,
and she was
she
close with her
apparently never
family.
came. I'm
She
sorry?
was close with her family. She talked to her mom, I won't say every day, but, pretty much every day, her sisters and, so, I mean, they were pretty tight-knit family. So it was a little surprising, that this wasn't reported. Maybe it was, and they said, "Hey, look, she's a grown woman. Maybe she just."
Right. I think some places do have it needs to be at least 48 hours or some number to be sure that she didn't
Yeah,
just go, oh, let's go off, have a day off at a casino or something. I don't know. But I think they do sometimes want a little more time on the missing person. So, okay. So at this point, posters are going up and her car, her RAV4, was found on the Steven Avery's property. I'm just using it as a shortcut. I know he doesn't own it, but he has access. The Avery property. Uh, who found the vehicle and how?
well, before we get to that, let me just fill you in just a little bit more. I promise I'll keep it not too much detail.
Mhm.
She gets reported on the 3rd by her mom and her stepdad on the 3rd, afternoon of the 3rd. And they of course, by late afternoon, they had found out where she had been. So they go visit all these places, one being Steven Avery. And, he tells them, yes, she was here. She came, took the photo, she left. I paid her and she left. And then 2 more officers from Manitowoc went back on the 4th and went inside the trailer. He said, yeah, come in and look whatever you want. And they left and they didn't find anything. In fact, one of the detectives said, I don't think it had anything to do with it.
Well, when you say it didn't have anything to do with it,
I mean, as far as her disappearance, that's what
okay, I was gonna say though, was foul play suspected immediately?
I won't necessarily say that, but they were definitely looking at him because of, his past record. I mean, he was just, like I said, he was just an ass.
Okay, so because she crossed his path and she disappeared, that made their spidey sense or whatever tingle.
There's no doubt. I won't say that they were necessarily, they weren't knocking down the door, but they went with every intent to give it a good look. Now, did they drive through all the way through the salvage yard? I can't answer that. I don't think they did. I mean, it's a pretty good sized place. So, and where the RAV was found was a little bit, it was in the yard, but it was a little bit out of the way on the corner, pretty far away. Really basically diagonal all the way across the yard from Avery's trailer.
But was it consciously hidden, or is it just there?
Well, they talk like, you hear this, you've probably heard that the RAV was hidden, but it really wasn't.
No, I haven't.
Okay. I'm sorry. It had things on it, and if anything, it stuck out because it had a hood leaned on against it. It had a box on the hood.
Okay, but it was obscured then. It wasn't just parked like in the SWAT. Went, oh, hey, look at that! It does sound like
if you walk by it, you'd see it. It wasn't like hidden. It's got a big RAV4 spare tire cover on the back of it that wasn't hidden either. So it was in plain view.
Okay.
And it looked new, compared to all the other cars around it. It looked like a decent car. You'd wonder why is it here?
So it wasn't under a tarp. It wasn't, anything.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So the cops, you said, had visited him at the yard, looked around at least his trailer, may or may not have actually walked the salvage yard. You don't know at this point. And then what triggered finding the RAV? Who found it?
One of Pam's relation, I'm not exactly sure, second or third cousin, I don't really know. She was a former private investigator, and her and her daughter showed up as part of the search people that had came out on the morning of November 5th. And she volunteered to go to the Davis salvage yard. I'm not sure why nobody had been assigned to go there because they knew she went. But, her and her daughter ended up going there, and they're the ones that found it.
When she went out there or went to take the picture of Steven Avery's van, where was the van? Was the van in the salvage yard or was it elsewhere?
No, it was on the salvage yard, but it was at basically in front of Barb's house. Barb and Steven lived about, 75 yards apart. Each had a trailer. So the little land kind of in between there, the van was parked right there at the road.
Okay, but attached to the salvage yard or somehow right nearby.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have to drive into the salvage yard and drive down that road to the end of it.
Okay. So it's possible that her vehicle never left the salvage yard is what the state is claiming, I'm guessing.
That's right. They're saying that's exactly what happened. Sat there for, from the 31st until the morning of the 5th, and no one saw it. But there are customers and people back then all the time. Fairly busy junkyard.
Is it possible though that nobody saw it? I'm just asking. I don't know.
I suppose it's possible that no one would have saw it and said something to Stephen or Chuck or Earl. That's the three brothers or Alan. Alan's the father that ran the shop. What's this blue car you got back here? It looked pretty nice. What's going on with it?
Okay, so I'm gonna guess that when they found the RAV4, they probably impounded it and searched it for evidence. At what point did they arrest Steven Avery?
They seized the RAV, went back to the crime lab. That was the late evening of the 5th. They processed it, and according to the state, they found 6 drops of Avery's blood inside the RAV4 from the back seat. Well, coming in from the back, going into the front seat. Now, there's a cargo area and the back. None of his blood was found back there. 6 drops of his blood were found from the right front back door, passenger side back door, to the front. And then,
so like somebody came forward from the back seat. Where would he have been to place that blood?
That's a good. Uh, we don't know. We really don't know. I can't tell you that. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. I'm just wondering. Oh, all right. So, but they're saying that they found blood. And when you say
Yep.
the state claims they found blood, I mean, did they find blood, or
They did.
claim
They
they found
did.
blood and you don't believe they found it?
Well, I have issues with the crime lab, and there's reasons why. I don't just say that.
Mhm.
There are reasons behind why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's not just that I don't like, don't trust the cops and don't trust crime. That's not it, Eric, at all. I promise you that. There are reasons for my thinking. And, again, I just want the full truth. I don't have any affiliation with one side or the other. So anyway, yes, they did process it. They found these 6 drops of blood. Now, there's more that they found later, but we won't get into that yet. And then in the back of the RAV, in the cargo area, they found Teresa's blood.
Okay. So now, from what you just said right now, and I am not a lawyer. I hang out with them because I have bad taste of friends sometimes. No, I'm just kidding. It does sound like if in fact that was his blood and her blood was also in the vehicle, even though her blood could have been in the vehicle at any given time, depending. It does sound like they have a pretty strong reason to speak to him a lot more.
Absolutely. I agree with it. I 100% agree with you. When I first watched Making a Murderer, I had no, when I finished the series, I had no idea if Steven had anything to do with it. Was he guilty? It didn't look good. I know that. Brendan's a whole different story, but yeah, it definitely didn't look good. But in addition to the finding blood in this back cargo area, there's blood on the inside cargo door. It's spatter. It goes straight back, like not gunshot spatter, like she was hit with something.
Oh,
They
like
also
a bludgeon or
Yes,
something? Okay.
yes. And in addition to that, on the back door at the handle, they also found a bloody fingerprint and blood that doesn't belong to Avery or Dassey. It's a partial profile, but it's not Avery or Dassey. They
So
never ran it through CODIS either, but go ahead.
Okay, so they definitively found body fluids. I don't know what you want to put it. They found another genetic profile.
That's right.
So there was definitively another person there
That's right.
who was not Steven Avery or
Brendan Dassey.
Okay. And what came of that?
Nothing.
What did the
Nothing.
state say? Did they acknowledge that they found anything else?
Not about that. The crime lab came up with a partial profile, but it was enough. I'm not a scientist. I'm not but I'm good friends with one that is. He's part of our group that we have, and this is what he's done his entire life. And there's something called alleles in DNA.
Right.
And none of the alleles match either one of Brendan or Steven. So
I guess the only other question would be, and again, I'm not trying to go one way or another.
Sure.
At what point was that DNA left? Was it left on that day? Was it left 3 weeks prior?
We don't know.
There's always that's always a problem too.
Sure.
Generally, when you find like Avery's blood near her blood, they're the same age, pretty bad looking, but there could be other people or whatever. Anyway, that's interesting that nobody has talked about that any further. It didn't come up in the trial or anything.
Well, it came up in the trial, but it didn't go anywhere because it's a partial profile, and they didn't run it through CODIS. And there's
partial or not, does it not conclude that there's another person?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely concludes that that there's a third person that bled on, on that car. There's also 8 sets of latent prints that don't belong to Avery or Dassey or any of the Dassey family. They didn't run those through APHIS, so we don't know who they belong to. I mean, whoever it is may not even have a criminal record, so that may be moved. But so that from that, the car was found on the 5th. They do the testing, get it back. Avery's arrested on November 9th. And they first arrest him on a felon with a gun. That's what they originally arrested him on, because the guy that owned the trailer had 2 guns that he left in the trailer, and they hung on a rack. The police knew that they were there. They had been there a number of times on other matters, and they knew the guns were there and had never said anything. But that's neither here nor there. That's why they arrested him. And then on the 15th of November 2005, then he got charged with murder.
Okay.
Various other assorted charges.
Interesting. So then now he goes to trial, and I'm going to say he was convicted.
That's right.
What point then did the Making a Murderer team or whoever, what spurred on this Netflix special? Was it a 10-year thing again? Because now we're talking about a 20-year-old crime, which is very interesting. And then I guess 10 years in, somehow that became a documentary. What do you know what caused that?
Yes. I mean, I don't know the full story. I just the words that I picked up. Of course, Avery went to trial first, and he got convicted or found guilty. Dassey went on trial about a month later. He was also found guilty.
Okay, what's Dassey's story? But please fill that in, because I forget that there's always that second name. Are they saying that he and Dassey did something to her?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's horrific, horrific ultra violence that they're saying. So, Dassey, you got to understand, Dassey's, I mean, I guess he's faster now, but he's much older at this point. He's a grown man, but at that point, he's a 16-year-old kid. He got questioned pretty early on, and when I say early, I mean like November.
What's his relationship to Steven Avery?
So Barb Avery is Steven's sister. Barb had 4 sons, and Brendan being one of them, the youngest.
That's his nephew, then.
That's his nephew. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So the way that Brendan got pulled into this, in February of 2006, now we're talking, basically 90 days after the fact, his cousin Kayla, one of the other brothers' kids, told the counselor about a dream or something about blood coming up to the concrete. And this triggered an interview. These counselors called the cops, the investigators. So they went and interviewed Kayla. Her name is Kayla Avery. So they went and interviewed her. And, from what I can gather, we don't have the audio recording, but it was pretty rough interview. Anyway,
can you back up a second? You said it was a pretty rough interview. What do you mean by that?
Well, there was an interview. I'll say that. Maybe I shouldn't have added it in. I don't want to cover it too much. There's a clip in Convicting the Murder, the counter documentary to Making a Murderer. There's a clip in that in which she speaks. She talks about what these 2 investigators did. They're asking her questions, and she's telling them answers, and they said, "No, you're lying. You need to tell us the truth." And she said, "I am telling you the truth." So they treated her pretty rough. Like I said, I don't have the audio recording of her interview with him, but I mean, just listening to that, it didn't sound very good. But
Okay.
So from that they waited about a week after that. They went and interviewed Brendan at his school, and then they took him and his mom after school to I think one of the firehouses and interviewed him again. Then they put him up in a hotel overnight and had some more interaction with him, which I don't want to get too detailed into that, but
So wait. Okay, just so I clarify, they interviewed Brendan at school away, I guess, because he's a minor.
on the 27th, that's right. They went to his house school and talked to him.
Okay, because he's a minor, so they had to be, supervising us. And then he did an interview, and then they took him to a hotel, and you said they interacted with him more.
Well, they called his mom, and they wanted to talk to Brendan some more, and they took her and Brendan to the fire station, I guess, the police station, whatever, and talked to him some more. And because he was talking to them, I don't know why, but they said that, their reasoning for putting him up in a hotel was that they said it was for safety concerns because, Brendan was interviewing with them. It never really made sense. It still doesn't today.
Was Avery out at the time?
No. Once Avery went behind, got locked up, he never came out.
So who was the danger to Brendan if they think it's Avery and Brenda?
Well, I mean, there's two brothers, but what are they going to do? I mean, they're not going to do anything to the kid. And he wasn't like, saying that they all got together and did all kinds of terrible things and stole cars. It wasn't anything like that. It never made sense. Yeah, they wanted him to put him up in a hotel. I have my thoughts on that, but that's for a different time. It was a really strange thing. They said it was for safety, and then they let him go the next morning. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, so what did he in effect tell them in the interview?
Well, in the beginning, he didn't really tell them that much, but now he didn't really. They were doing most of the talking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but at the same time, Brendan told him. I mean, getting into a little bit of the detail, him and his brother got off the school bus at 3:40 or 3:45 to walk from the end of Avery Road down to their trailer. About a 5-6 minute walk, whatever. Brendan told them that he saw Teresa coming out of there at that time, driving out.
Okay, so Brendan saw Teresa leave the Avery property.
That's what he said, but it's not true. Blame his brother, which I'm not saying he's a rocket scientist, but he's not slow. Brendan's a little slow. He said no, that didn't happen at all. He never said anything about it, and they're walking together. It didn't happen. There's just no way.
Okay, so he claims he saw her leave, and the person walking with him said no, and then...
That's right. Yeah, Brendan said a lot of things that just weren't true. It's like he wanted to help them by just saying whatever.
I see. So did the authorities then think that Steven put him up to saying something, or what?
No. No, they just, for whatever reason, they kept following this trail. But Brendan is the weak link here. That much is clear. Now here we are. We're moving forward into from this early time. Moving up into late February of 2006. We're several months into this investigation. And anyway, so they let him go the next morning. And then March 1st, they go after him again at school. At the school. They basically go get him, pick him up from the house school, and take him to the police station.
For questioning?
Yes, for an interview.
Okay. Why?
Well, because they wanted to talk to him some more.
No, I mean, is there some reason that, did they find more information that made them want to talk to him more, or they just were covering all bases again?
I think they were, I can't say what for sure is in their head because it's only speculation and an opinion.
Okay.
This is where, if we get into what I see and what I know you don't see it because you don't have the knowledge. And again, I'm not trying to say that, anything bad or anything negative, but they wanted this connection. They needed this connection because Avery's not telling them anything, I mean, he's talking on the phone constantly. His mouth is his own worst enemy, but he's not saying anything at all, trying to get out. But regardless of that, they take him to the police station and they start talking to him, and they're pushing him for this, for that. He starts telling them all this insane stuff.
Now, what do you mean by insane stuff?
He's telling them things that he's telling them things that couldn't have happened because there were other people around that know that it couldn't have happened because they were there. So the things that he was telling them couldn't have taken place. I'm talking about.
Yeah, this is related to Teresa or something else.
Well, later on, yeah, he did start talking about these things that he said that happened with Teresa. He said that, he told about 7 or 8 different stories. It's really more 8, but anyway, let's just say 7. One of the stories he said is that he got on his bicycle after him and Blaine came home from school, and he rode back down to the mailbox and got the mail, and he had a letter for Steven. Well, Brennan never got the mail, ever. Never got it. The mail was collected at noon or 1 o'clock, whenever. So one of the adults in the family did that. Brendan never got the mail. And besides that, his bicycle was broke. It was unrideable. So that's one of the things. Anyway, he said he came back and home and had this letter for Steven and went to the door. And Steven came to the door all sweaty and invited him in. And then when he went in, he saw Teresa tied up in a chair.
Okay.
Another story he told him is that he went in and Teresa was tied up in the bed down the hall. It wasn't right there. We would go in. I guess it's like maybe the living room area.
Mm-hmm.
That she was tied up in the bed down the hall.
Okay.
So there are varying degrees of stories depending on which one. That's what I'm saying. He told them all kinds of crazy stuff. It's unbelievable. And they should have known better. My opinion, this is just, Eric, this is my opinion. I'm not asking anyone to believe me.
So are you thinking, is your theory that he had fantasies and was sharing fantasies with the police or something?
I think it's more of they pushed him when the recorder was off. They pushed him in a way that, as a child, and this, make no mistake, Brendan is a child. I mean, he just couldn't protect himself. He just couldn't. Emotionally and mentally, he's just not built that way. He's a pleaser. He's a people pleaser.
Okay, just to clarify, I vaguely heard, and I'm not trying to besmirch, but that he might be considered developmentally challenged.
Absolutely, he was
Is
at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, at the time. Yeah, like I said, he's a grown man now, and I'm sure he's much more caught up. But at the time, yeah, there's no doubt he was. I'm not saying that he had to have help with every single thing, but he definitely, from a, he wasn't mentally tough. He'd never been through the system. He'd never really been in any kind of real trouble at all. He's just a good kid.
Well, like most of us.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, they push him pretty significantly. I mean, the interviews are available to listen to and read. And they ended up arresting him that day, that afternoon. He gets arrested, charged.
For accessory after the fact, or
No, with
what?
murder, with the whole gambit, the whole 9 yards.
Did he
Murder.
say
Oh,
he
yeah.
did something with her?
Oh, absolutely. Said he, cut her throat and had sex with her and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, if you listen to what was presented at trial only, and that's all you knew, you'd say they did it. But there's so much more to the case. That's why I've been involved in it for as long as I have. If everything that was in the case I could grasp and there wasn't so many problems with it, I would have let it go years ago. Yes, Eric, I needed to mention item BZ. Didn't really talk about it before, but I want to give a brief history because it is really important to the case. I'm going to give you a brief history and several of the events surrounding it. So after the RAF4 was found on the Avery salvage property on November 5th, the salvage yard was seized for 8 days. Anyway, they did multiple searches in various different areas around the compound. And comes with that, security had to be placed 24 hours a day for that entire duration because there was potential evidence that hadn't been collected, and they wanted to make sure, no one came in and did whatever. We're going to talk specifically about the morning of November 8th. This is, basically we're going into the fourth day of them being there, the law enforcement. And this first I'm going to show you a couple of documents here. An officer from the they had various officers from outside the jurisdiction that did come to help with security and various things. This one officer is Joanne Mignon, I'm going to talk about first. She was assigned on November 8th to Davis Salvage Yard, in particular, Avery's trailer area, because they had come to pump the septic tank. And anyway, she was there, and around, as you can see in the document here, I don't know if you can see this here, I'll try to highlight it. It's at 12:47 p.m. Officer Jason Just from the Manitowoc Police Department came to relieve her so she could go to the bathroom, get a little lunch break, because she hadn't had a break, and she was there alone. And Officer Just came along as well. Well, she went and did her thing. Well, in the meantime, I'll show Officer Just report here. This is in the Manitowoc Summary Report. These reports are readily available. He actually has a little interruption here, but Officer Just, he shows him arriving there and so forth. So you can see that they're highlighted 11:08, 12:47 hours. Talks about coming. Then he goes back and talks about the 7th. And then he goes back again to the 8th. And he's talking about, and this is where it gets important. He's talking about he's in the backyard area. Now, he's fed Avery's dog Bear a couple of times in the prior days. And of course, Bear's a German Shepherd, and he's not too happy to see all these people. He's just like most dogs. He's, he's barking, he's a little aggressive. It's his property, Anyway, Jason, the officer Just, he states that he notices something about 8 feet south of the burn pit. And so he goes to inspect it. And he says he finds a bone. So he goes and alerts COSO officer Lieutenant Kelly Sipple. He comes back and they're looking. And then Sipple contacts the DCI agents, and within a short amount of time, DCI agent Tom Sturdivant and Deb Strauss arrive on scene. Well, Tom Sturdivant, this DCI agent, he goes poking around in the burn pit and says he sees skull bones. I will remind everyone there was not one photograph taken on November 8th of the burn pit. Not one. And I've asked numerous times. Nothing was ever presented in trial. We'll get more into that just in a second. So Sturdivant, for whatever reason, it's in in his testimony, and there's also a report. Again, all this is readily available for anyone that wants to read it. He goes over to Barb Yonda's house, which is next door Avery's sister, and gets a rake. He comes back to the burn pit and starts raking the burn pit out. Now, there are photos, and I'm going to show them to you. The first one being, I'll remind everyone, these photos, there's 3 photos I'm going to show you. These were taken by Trooper Reese on November 6th. And this is specifically of the burn pit. And anyway, DCI agent Sturdivant comes back over and with this rake and starts raking the burn pit out. Now, it's kind of difficult to see because these are not, great quality photos by any stretch. But in this area, there's a kind of to the right, there's a ball of wire. It's tower wire. All the Averys, and I'm sure other people, burn towers up instead of having to pay for the recycle fee or whatever it was to destroy them or to turn them in. But these agents, Sturdivant, testified that there was a pile of bones. He reports there's a pile of bones in the middle of this burn pit. But as you can see on November 6th, and these do have the metadata included, there is no pile of bones here. It's just not present. I'm going to show you one more photo here. I think it's a little further back. It's also interesting to note that this bone that Officer Joe from Manitowoc, proclaims that he saw was never photographed and it was never collected. Not once. Anyway, going back to this prior photo, DCI agent Sturdivant was so excited about raking this tire wire out that they left it there. Anyway, after they messed around with this burn pit for quite some time, it said that they, found some this bone material. They contacted John Ertl from the Madison Crime Lab. Now they were not too far away, as our memory serves. In any event, they didn't contact him for about an hour and a half, but they wanted Ertl to come because he had the sifting equipment. So they come and they show up, and Ertl and several others, they set the sifting equipment up. Below the sifting equipment, they placed a tarp to catch anything whatever. And he instructed the few that were helping him there. They weren't just technicians from the crime lab. They were Officer Jost from the Manitowoc Police Department was there. He helped. Anyway, they did the sifting for about an hour or so until it got dark, and they packed up this tarp that they had, and left. Took another tarp and covered the burn pit with this tarp and just left it there. They didn't stay. This tarp was collected by Tom Sturdivant and Deb Strauss, but it was eventually ended up at the Calumet County garage in Chilton. Now, Earl had told these folks that anything that wouldn't fit through this, or they weren't sure of, or whatever, he's standing right there. I'm not sure why he wouldn't have just identified something one way or the other, to place it on the tarp. The next thing I'm going to show you is item BZ itself. Anyway, on November 10th, DCI agent Pevito and CASO investigator John Dettering started going through this tarp that was below the sifting equipment at the Avery salvage yard. Allegedly, they found item BZ on November 10th. Now, if you look at this and the bone material in the white box, there is a noticeable difference in the degree of burn. They don't even look nowhere near the same. Anyway, this is the tibia. It's not just one piece. This entire, I'm going to show you a few more photographs. This entire thing is item BZ. Piece of muscle tissue, the tibia, you can see there to the left. This was one piece. It got cut. Anyway, this is where Sherry Culhane from the crime lab extracted DNA material and came up with the 7 loci matched to Teresa. So anyway, we have no real chain of custody for item BZ. It just shows up a couple of days later by paper trail. And I'm not saying that anyone did anything. It's possible it happened. But it's really odd that no one questioned or even asked John Ertl, what is this? Someone had to have seen and noticed, because this larger piece at the top here, it's squishy. It's squishy material. It's not hard like bone. These other pieces are hard bone. This other piece is squishy. So anyone that, Ertl would have known that this was something very unique and they needed to take care of it right away. And this is the box of bones that I mentioned a minute ago. The degree of burn and decoloration is significantly different. So anyway, those questions that have arisen from item BZ, I do believe in, if you look at item BZ and what Culhane extracted and the DNA, the 7 loci, and then you add in the saliva 50% match that they found with Teresa to her mother. There's some people who don't believe that Teresa's dead, but most of us do. I can't say that anyone in our group thinks that she's still alive based on that. But there's other evidence too, So, but I felt like that, item BZ was presented at trial and talked about, but it wasn't talked about in the full capacity that it should have been talked about. There was about roughly 60% of her body was recovered.
Where was it recovered?
They found a good chunk of it in Avery's fire pit.
Okay. So, yes, her vehicle is on Avery property, and her remains, we'll just say, I guess, what they discovered is on his property as well, or the Avery property?
In his backyard?
I see. That does look bad.
It looks terrible. It's awful. It looks terrible. You've done it, right? That's exactly how it looks.
Now, just to clarify, because again, I have not followed, I hear things about it, but from what I understand, Steven Avery did use that fire pit himself, and I have heard that he did things with animals, liked fire. I don't know if he wet beds, but there is this kind of trinity.
The cat story. Cat story. The cat story.
Yeah.
Yeah. You may tell you about the cat story.
I'd rather not, because I want to stay monetized here. People, please, people go look it up. But I would say that there's no excuse that I can think of for that story, unless you think that's normal behavior.
It's not. It's terrible. And him and the other person that threw it in the fire should have been punished. He wasn't the only one there.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that these things that are definitely known that you're acknowledging now do kind of establish a troubling pattern of behavior with Steven Avery. Is that
Yes.
fair?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess we're just going to pivot now, because I'm just saying, if I'm standing here blind, which I am, and I'm just hearing all the evidence right now, things look really bad for him.
Terrible.
If the remains are there, the vehicle's there. I mean, he's used the fire pit before. He's chased women off, however you want to put it. Doesn't sound like a good dude. So where did you start to have trouble thinking that, okay, some other dude did it, or somebody, well, they had to have gained entrance to his property. They had to leave the remains there on his property. Where did it start to fall apart for you that you said, hey, I don't know if this guy did anything?
It wasn't, look, in the beginning, let me be fair here. In the beginning, after making a murderer, a lot of people, wanted more information. I was on Reddit quite a bit. And of course, there's a Reddit sub called Making a Murderer. Somebody had created about a month before the documentary hit. So there was a buzz of activity. When I mean buzz, there was 70, 80,000 people within 90 days in this. Yes, in this subreddit. It was insane. Anyway, we wanted more information because we couldn't really find it out, because we saw some things within the documentary. The documentary itself, yeah, it's biased. However, even in its bias, there are a lot of truth in it. There are news reports and stuff in the courtroom, so it's kind of stuff that you just accept. I can't say it's 100% true, but so within the Making a Murder subreddit, a lot of us decided we would go do a GoFundMe or whatever, not necessarily GoFundMe, but we would raise money. And this one guy and gal volunteered to open records request, trial transcripts, police reports, everything, photos. We did the first one and we raised $3,000, I think, and got quite a bit of stuff. We did another one and raised, I think, almost another $3,000. We got a lot more stuff. This guy put up a website. So, we have a way to share documentation, that kind of thing. Once you start reading into a lot of the material, it's not what you see on TV, of course. It never is. We could read through, in a documentary, I don't care how good they are, they can't broadcast an entire trial. So we had access. We were able to read the pre-trial, all the pre-trial stuff, the trial, and even some of the post-trial. We don't have a lot of the post-trial. We wanted to get the 85 case, but the 85 case they wanted almost $5,000 for, and we're not shelling out that much. But nonetheless, then that was in early mid 2016. And the more I read, the more questions that arose. And then not only my questions, other people had questions too.
So what are some of the big questions that,
Well, I'd really have to jump a little forward to answer those, and I will. I'm glad to do that.
Okay.
So we, another guy, he's not really around in it, or if he's around, he's kind of kept keeping a low profile. He was in it from the beginning too. He got a lot of the dispatch and radio calls from Manitowoc. Now, Manitowoc are the ones that it happened. The Avery Salvage Yard is in Manitowoc County. However, since Avery was suing them, the case got handed off to the neighboring county of Calumet.
Okay.
So, and that happened by midday, right within 2 hours of the car being found, they
Mhm.
handed that case off. However, Manitowoc stayed involved. They stayed involved in the case. I personally don't think they should have. I think they should have left it and got another department, but whatever.
Now, when you say they stayed involved, can you elaborate a little more? What is involved? Because, it is their jurisdiction. If they, like escorted the other police or whatever and just said, hey, go investigate here or what have you, or were they actually investigating themselves and involved in the crime scene?
They were definitely investigating, and they were definitely there was at least one at the burn pit when they were collecting the bone material, digging that up. The state also called in the DCI, which is basically the DOJ department of the state.
Bureau of Criminal
Some-
Investigations, I think.
That's correct. That's correct. And someone also called in the Wisconsin State Trooper. They have a specialized unit called the Crash and Reconstruction Unit. They were there for 8 days as well, and they took hundreds of photos. I'm glad they did. I'm glad they were called in. And the FBI even offered to help, but I guess they were told, no, we don't want your help. So they didn't participate.
Okay.
So Calumet being the lead, and Manitowoc was supposed to be there on support function, and for a lot of it they were, because once the car was found, that entire Avery salvage yard was under siege. They took everybody off the yard and closed it. So they had to have people to help for security and so forth and so on. But there are other detectives that were actually doing a lot of investigating in other areas and doing various things. I'll tell you one, and we haven't really gotten into it. Going back to the day that Teresa disappeared, she went to this other house. The first one she went to was the Schultz, which was south of where Teresa's from. And then she went north and came up to Manitowoc, where these other two appointments were. The other person's name is George Zipper. His grandson had a Firebird that he had put in the paper. He put an ad in the paper. And what Auto Trader does, though they did back then, they would have local people scan the newspaper for people that had cars for sale. This would go to their telemarketing department. They would make an 800 call saying, hey, we've got people from Auto Trader to come and, blah, 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 check out your car and get a picture if you want to put it in. And that's how that appointment got set up. So there was a voicemail that Teresa left at the Zippers at 2:12 p.m. on October 31st. There is a detective from Manitowoc that went and made a recording of that voicemail, and it vanished. It was not put into property. It was not turned over as evidence, given a property tag, entered into the evidence ledgers. This is November of 2005. It disappeared. Then, 15 months later, it appears again on Ken Kratz, the prosecutor. It appears on his exhibit list. However, he didn't present it at trial. It was never played. No one has ever heard that voicemail. No one. No one in the public has ever heard that voicemail. It's a real problem for me. It's a real problem.
Now, that voicemail proves what?
I don't know.
Just
because of we don't know what it says. We don't know if I'm just going to throw a scenario out. May or may not have happened. She goes because the grandson's car was now parked right up the road. So if Teresa drove by, she wouldn't have seen it. You had to park and walk back. I guess the way this property is, you kind of had to walk back, and it was basically hidden from the road. So she would have had to walk back from that area, from the road to have found it. So what if she called and said, hey, I've been by your your house. I can't see the car. I've got another appointment I'm going to run and do. I'll be back.
Has anybody talked to the person whose voicemail she left it on? I don't know the right way to grammatically say that, but she left a voicemail for somebody. What did they say she said?
George and Joellen Zipper weren't young at the time, and they're really old now, but they weren't young at the time, and George was not there. Joellen was outside. She never listened to it. Now, another detective said he listened to it, but, he didn't give any big, long spiel about what it allegedly said.
Well, I'm confused by this then. How do they know that there was even a voicemail, and how would they know that it was
Phone records.
or relevant? Okay, so there's a phone record of, I
Yes.
guess, her cell phone to them,
That's correct.
and they went there and found a voicemail, but the people who own the phone had never listened to their own voicemail?
Mm-mm. No, they had never listened to that voicemail because they went there on the night of the 3rd. Yeah. It was around 9 o'clock or so that night. They went to the Zipper property and interviewed these people. And George was never there. And Joellen said she never listened to it. So anyway, another detective said he did, but he didn't make a recording of it, according to him. Another detective went back.
Did he convey what he heard?
Yes.
What do you say it said?
That basically she was on her way, I think is what he said it said.
Okay. So there is some reference to it. I just wanted to, clarify on that.
That's correct. Another detective, a few days later, went back and made the recording. Now, we don't know this from his report because he didn't write. Most of the officers from Manitowoc that were involved in a support function, even if they did something, didn't write any reports at all. We don't know what all they did. Does it matter? I don't know if it matters or not, Eric. I just know that when an officer is doing something in a event, I would think there would be at least some semblance of a report to the superior of how they spent their day. But regardless of that, this other detective went back on the 5th or 6th and made this recording. It never and we don't know what happened to it. And like I said, it never got entered into evidence of the ledgers and assigned a property tag. It's the same token now. They also went to Barb Yonda's. Teresa had left a voicemail there too. And we have that recording.
Okay. So there is a question about the recording, and apparently the recording does exist, though. You said that it was not present for 15 months, and then it showed up on the evidence list of the prosecutor later. So it was obtained at some point.
A month before trial, it's on his exhibit list, but he never plays it, and it's disappeared again. Can't be found. I know that Avery's lawyer has requested it of both Manitowoc and Calumet County. They say they don't have it. So that's a problem for me. Because if nothing else, this voice recording is the last message Teresa left anywhere. Even for an emotional thing, I would have thought it would have been played at trial. That goes a long ways.
Is it possible, I could be wrong, that it was on the evidence list because the prosecutor heard about it and entered it on because he assumed it was coming with the other evidence, and then it was not actually there? I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just asking if that's a possibility. Like,
Possible. He's pretty thorough.
Because it would explain why he would put it on the chart and then not have it now and not have it before. Like
it's possible, but
especially if you said that the other police officer conveyed or stated, yes, I heard this voicemail. It said blah, blah, blah. The prosecutor may have said, okay, so you guys recorded it, right? Yeah, I think, I think deputy such and such did it, or police officer such and such did it. And okay, boom, boom, noted in the file, and then move forward. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses. I could see that happening. And I'm not saying that the cop did right or wrong. If he didn't enter the evidence or he lost it, that there's a problem. Absolutely. But I don't know if that's the prosecutor's problem, is my question.
Well, ultimately, I don't know that it's his problem or not, because, well, there are other things too.
Well, then let's go to those, because I definitely want to, hear the holes in the
there's
case or mitigating.
Well, okay. We haven't talked about Cus Road.
Is that a person or a place?
It's a place.
Okay.
If you look at the back of Avery, where Avery lived in that trailer, you look at Cus Road. Between where Avery lived and looking behind his property across is a quarry and onto the Redant family. They're still there. He may have sold it out by now. The Redant family, they owned a quarry there and operated it.
Mhm.
Pretty large area. And anyway, go across, and to the right of that was a field and a fence. Anyway, if you walk down that, there's a trail that goes down through there, actually. It brings you to this cul-de-sac at the end of Cus Road. Cus Road became an issue. They were searching for anything with Teresa. So they, on the morning of the 7th of November, they had 5 or 6 search teams made up of police and their maybe 5 state troopers. And anyway, this one group, led by a retired Manitowoc detective, started out in the Redant Quarry, and they walked towards Cus Road. Now, they had permission to search the Redant property, but at some point they crossed the property line into these other people's property. And it's basically just a wooded area, okay? And as they're walking through there, they come to an area of disturbed earth. It was really disturbed. Now, we can't get any photos of it. They refuse to release them. So, and I've got the recording of where this retired detective calls in and says, hey, I need a couple of DCI investigators down here and bring some shovels. And the prosecutors even refer to it as a clandestine burial site.
752 to 7 or to 496. Rod, we're almost at the end of Cus Road. Should be a squad down there. I don't know who's sitting in it, but bring an investigator down here. We got some items that should be cleared. Copied. 496, you may want a shovel.
So what did they find there?
Well, they found a number of things there. Not too much that ever really made it into many reports, but they found some, well, number one, a cadaver dog hit on that area.
Hmm.
So you know what that means. Presence of some kind of death.
Sure. We don't know if it's human, though. That's what.
Oh yeah. These are specifically for human remains detection. HRD.
Right. Did they find human remains in this area?
No, they did not.
Okay.
But they still can detect. They detect biological decay in humans.
Hmm.
So they found some tarp material and a few other things. But they also, now, look, I'll say this because one of the state prosecutor or an assistant attorney general was part of this case, helping the actual prosecutor prosecute this case. In his brief, he even said they found bones there. He said they found bones there. Bones.
What kind of bones? Human bones?
Human bones. Yeah.
Kelsey,
Hey, Paul.
what's up?
Did you hear? There are human bones that we found?
I heard about some of them, yes.
Yep, okay. We got another file that we found.
Okay.
Going in, and our crime scene has now expanded by about 2 miles.
And what happened to him?
Nothing. We don't know. Have no clue. No idea. Not done. I got more. This was on the 7th. This, like I said, this
Of
retired
November.
7th of November. That's right.
Okay.
Just 2 days after the rag was found. The retired detective calls in for DCI investigators. Of course, they call in. There's probably 20, 25 people over there, and they're there all day. State trooper, the reconstruction, they have a helicopter guy. He takes a bunch of aerial photos. So we do have a little bit of a visual of the area that they were digging. So they're there all day. They end up after many hours. We don't really know exactly how long they were there. They don't really say. But at minimum, 8 hours, maybe 9. It's dark. I know it's well after dark when they leave. I do know that. Well after dark. So anyway.
Well, it gets pretty dark there. You're talking late October, November. So what is the sundown there? 4 something in the afternoon?
If it's cloudy by 4:30, it's almost dark here. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. So anyway, they don't really say anything about what they found. We found out later on in 2022 about more of what was actually found. So anyway,
So were bones found or not?
well, according to the Assistant Attorney General, they were, but we don't have any evidence of that. And none were entered into evidence. And I have the paper. I mean, I have this. This is a reply that he wrote to the court for a motion that, one of the defense attorneys had filed, either Dean Strang or Jerry Deating had filed. There's also, and that's the 7th Cus Road. And of course, I'm leaving a ton of stuff out, but let's move forward just a little bit, just to back this up just a little bit. So November 9th, Calumet County Lieutenant Kelly Sipple goes, again, I don't know which quarry it's in. Like I said, there's like 3 around. I mean, I'm talking about right there at the Davy Salvage Yard. It's kind of surrounded. And they looked at all of them. I'm talking about the law enforcement. He's at one of the quarries with at least 1, if not 2 DCI agents. And he calls in about 20 minutes to 2 that afternoon. So they're heading down to one of the, he didn't say which quarry, heading down into a quarry or into the quarry. So then at 2:12 p.m., he calls his captain and says they found 2 5-gallon buckets full of human bones. This is November 9th. 2 5-gallon buckets full of human bones.
There are human bones that we found?
I heard about some of them, yes.
Yep, okay. We got another file that we found.
But here's the thing. Not a single photo is taken. None of it's entered into evidence at all. None of it.
So where are these? The bones.
No idea. No clue. No idea where they are. I have no idea. Nothing. No photos taken in situ. Nothing. People are, I've had a lot of arguments with people on the other side of the coin that say, well, maybe he was mistaken. Well, perhaps he was. But wouldn't he have written a report and stating that, he had 2 DCI agents with him. I can only speculate because I don't know. Neither DCI agent wrote a report that they were even at any of these quarries on that day. I've looked.
Where are you getting the information though? I mean, how if it was never written down and never recorded, I'm confused.
Because of the phone call. He's talking to his captain. He's reporting this to his captain.
So you had the phone call?
Cameron County Sheriff?
Hey, Trace, it's Kelly.
Yes.
Can I speak to the captain, please?
Yes.
Kelsey,
Hey, Paul.
what's up?
Did you hear? There are human bones that we found?
I heard about some of them, yes.
I mean, from Calumet, we got. I mean, a lot of it's irrelevant. What the dispatch calls that we got from them. Another lady got those. She's not really involved in the case anymore, but there's 17,500 files approximately, and 95% of it's irrelevant because they sent everything. It's not just Avery; it's every call. Every call they got. But so that's a real problem for me. It's a real issue.
Well, I imagine it would be, because even if it's no relevance to the case, which it may not have any relevance to the case whatsoever, if those are human bones, where the hell did they come from? I would like to just know that part.
Absolutely.
I think most people would. That's troubling. So we've got buckets of bones and buried bones in two different areas, and
That's right.
no further mention at any point.
No.
All right. So what's next? Obviously, it's a huge problem, and we're inserting them, but what is the next problem that you have?
Stepping back in time just a little, let me go back to November 4th. There's a flyover video. So November 4th, they decide, I'm talking about Calumet, decided that they were going to do basically a flyby into the areas that Teresa would have allegedly traveled, okay? And it was the sheriff and this new investigator. Her name is Wendy. And so they charter a little plane the afternoon of November 4th. They're up there approximately 2.5, 3 hours. And the only video that shows really anything is about 2 or 3 minutes of Avery's property, the salvage yard. It doesn't show any other areas or locations that they allegedly went to. Nothing. Just the Avery salvage yard. That's a problem. November
Why?
5th. Well,
Why is that a
because why wouldn't they video the other areas too? And if they
Well,
did video them,
they? Are you sure they didn't? And the reason why I'm asking is if it's about the Avery investigation and the property, and they happen to film other stuff, would that have been kept out because it's irrelevant? That only the Avery property is what the prosecution cared about? And I'm just asking. I don't.
I agree with you. At the time, it wasn't just Avery. They hadn't found the car yet. This is the 4th.
Okay.
They hadn't found the car. They hadn't found the car yet. So
Hmm.
this flight was supposed to be to traverse her route, but they only really videoed the Avery property. They didn't just video the.
So there is no
Hey.
other video, or they didn't turn it over? I'm just clarifying.
Well, I think it's been edited, but I can't prove that. It's just me talking, because there's other problems with the electronic material too. So I can't prove that, Eric. I can't. This is just my speculation from my observations of other things in the case. Case in point, one of the things I just pointed out about the November 9th call from Sipple. Where are these bones at? You're telling your captain you got all 2 5-gallon buckets full of bones. My God,
That's a lot of bones, by the way.
It is. That's absolutely. So
2 to 3
yeah.
people.
Well, yeah, absolutely could be, especially if they've been crushed. You got to remember, there's a rock crusher in the Bredant pit. There's a rock crusher in that pit. Now, again, I don't know what crew he was at. He didn't say, and he didn't report it. I'm talking about a written report. So anyway, yeah, this the flower video is, and it's really bad too. So what else? November 4th, November 5th. I mean, So her car, Teresa's car, was seized on the 5th morning of the. Well, actually, they didn't get it back till really late that night. The midday of the 6th. Now, Avery and most of his family they got a cabin in Cribbets. It's about 90 miles away from Manitowoc. They had went to this cabin, and allegedly, all this stuff sitting in his backyard, and he just left it there.
Which stuff?
The bones, the car sitting on the property, all this stuff is just sitting there. He did all this stuff and just left it there, right out in the open. That doesn't make sense either. But, well, you can take, if he did it and had her wrapped, he could, just got a 5-gallon or 10 gallons of kerosene or a road flare and burnt the rab to the ground, and there would have been nothing. But
he could have, but that doesn't prove one thing one way or another.
That's what I'm saying. All this stuff is out in the open. I guess that's my point. Anyway, was
there any exculpatory evidence? For example, I would consider the profile of another person on the vehicle as potentially being exculpatory or helpful. Is there any other exculpatory evidence that says that, hey, nah, Avery didn't do it?
No, not that we're aware of.
Okay.
No, there's not. None that we're physically aware of. No.
So would it be fair for me to say that you just are not certain that they have proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt, not that he didn't do it?
I can't prove that he didn't do it. My biggest problem is with the investigation. That's my problem. And I'm not talking about just in the beginning. I'm talking about all of it. It's not just Manitowoc being involved. It's not just Calumet's a much smaller department. They're not tiny, but compared to Brown County, where Green Bay's at, which is right there, and Green Bay's got a huge department. Manitowoc has got a larger department, and that I'm sure Calumet needed help, but my biggest problem lies within the investigation. I have real concerns. Even today, another issue has been in getting documentation released. Now, you could say, well, just maybe they just don't want to let you have it. I don't know why. And there's certain, I'm not asking for, personnel records of officers. I'm not asking for anything that would be in the exclusion category of an open records request. These are records that are part of discovery, part of evidence that they collected. I've had real trouble with that. Now, I'm not the only one. I think my oldest records request with the DOJ is from August of 2022. Still don't have it. It's one record, one audio recording. I still don't have it. I've got two or three from 2023, and I think one from 2024. It's been a real process, man. It really frustrating too, because short of hiring a lawyer,
sure,
you're at their mercy.
Sure. Now, I guess one really final question on this or whatever is that, and this is me being very simplistic, but it is what it is.
Sure.
If it wasn't Steven Avery, who do you think it was?
Well, that's a slippery slope to, kind of accuse somebody.
Well, that's fair. You don't have to give names, but do you have specific names in mind without giving me the names? Do you have any people that you suspect? You have two.
Yeah, possibly three. And I have my reasons for that suspicion. And, I'm glad to share with you off screen who those people are and why. I'm glad to do that. It's speculation. A lot of people that don't believe that Stephen and Brendan were involved have their own, thoughts
in
and
the-
suspicions on it. But, in the past, I have thrown out names, but, I think it's a little unfair because it's just a suspicion. And I don't want to cast a lot of negative doubt on someone that,
Right. What you're saying then is, if you feel like Steven Avery may be railroaded, you don't want to railroad another person to unrailroad one guy.
that's right. The
And
nephew
that's fair.
came under a lot of fire. Bobby. So that's another one of the Dassey brothers. He got dragged into it. Not necessarily for what I would consider. I don't think he had anything to do with it. He had some issues for sure. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think he had anything to do with it. But that's just my thoughts. So, but yeah, I do have a couple of people in mind, and there are reasons for that. There's
Now,
there.
those people you have in mind, you feel from the evidence you've seen are more likely than Steven Avery or equally likely as Steven Avery? Like there's a possibility he actually did do it.
I think that from especially one, I think that that there was a definite motive to set Stephen up. They had access to everything. So,
But
uh,
keep in mind, and I hate to push it, but murdering somebody to set somebody up is a pretty high level of revenge or evil. I mean that just to murder somebody is bad enough. To do it for the purpose of setting up somebody else seems it's a stretch.
it is. There's no doubt about it. But the person that I'm talking about has got issues in the past, severe issues. Does that equate that they would kill somebody? I don't know. I can't say that for sure. That's why I said I don't want to accuse somebody of this horrific ordeal. I think it's unfair.
Okay, well, if people want to explore further, Jack, you have a podcast, I believe, right? Is it on YouTube or just podcast?
No, I'm part of a group called Foul Play, and we have thousands of videos. We have thousands of phone calls. We got all of Avery's jail phone calls that they would let us have. There's 1,500 plus of those. There's hundreds of calls, I say hundreds. There's a lot, at least 100, probably more than that, of his girlfriend Jody Stokowski. We've got a lot of her calls. The Manitowoc and Calumet dispatch and phone calls. We've got thousands of those, and radio transmissions. They're all on the Foul Play YouTube
Is this
channel.
all free to the public? So
Free to the public.
The
And we have
viewers
a lot.
can go
Yep.
there and dig in themselves and really come to
Yep.
their own conclusions, including the alternate suspects.
That's right. And we also have a website with a library with all the documentation we have so far for Brendan, Steve, and other cases too that we've been looking at the Karen Reed case quite heavily.
And what is that website?
It's foulplay.net. I'm sorry, foulplay.site.
.site, SITE.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic, Jack. I'm going to put that in the description, and I encourage everybody. Will you be available in the future to check this video from time to time and look at the comments and maybe reply to some people's questions they might have in the comments?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well that's wonderful, and folks, I encourage you, put any questions you have in the comments, and note, as I said before, I am clueless about this case, and when I'm asking questions, these are just I'm coming in blind. I'm being told something. I'm learning things, and I'm pushing it. So we would love to hear from you, and maybe we can come up with a conclusion over time, whether Steven Avery actually did do it and is the right person in prison, which would probably be the best outcome, in my opinion. If somebody's locked up, it would be nice to know they did do it. But whatever happens, we would like to get to the absolute truth. So, Jack, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Eric. I really appreciate the time to get on and talk about the case. Any questions people got, I'll try to keep an eye on the comments. And hey, I encourage everyone. We tell everyone, go do your own research. Don't believe me. Don't believe somebody else. Go do your own research and come to your own conclusions. That's what we always say.